From the center of the galaxy, this is ForceCenter, a show about Star Wars, pop culture, and the ultimate adventure, sticking your helmet in a sensory deprivation head. I meant to say that the other way around, but you know what I mean. That's the kind of episode you can expect here on ForceCenter. Lots of words flipped, just like all the ideas in the show. Anyway, I'm Joseph Scrimshaw.
And I'm Ken Napzok. We're going to be using the Willy Wonka strike that, reverse it phrase today.
Exactly. But I'm excited to get into all of the sensory deprivation helmet talk that I'm sure we're going to have. We also want to let you know right away that we have a live stream coming up. We're barreling toward the end of the Acolyte, and right before the last week, on Friday, July 12th at 2 p.m. Pacific, Ken and I are going to be doing a live stream so we can collect all of those great thoughts and great questions about what will happen at the very end of the Acolyte. Any thoughts on the live stream, Ken?
Always excited to get right up in the right up in the faces of the fans. Strike that, reverse it. I don't know. Always fun to connect directly with everyone as we head towards the end of the series.
We had a great live stream. I can't remember when. Time it moved so very weirdly. Was it last week?
Yeah, yes. It was last week. Yeah, it was.
Last week.
Yeah, it was.
And we look forward to having a great one next week. That's how time works. All right, let's get into this episode of The Acolyte. Oh, wait, I knew there was something. Jennifer Landa is not here, sadly.
Yeah.
His regular watchers, listeners know Jennifer has been going back to school, so she hasn't been able to join us for other episodes. She's been doing her best to join us for the Acolyte episodes, but there are just too many needs this week, so she sends her regards and wishes she could be here, and will hopefully be here for the rest of our Acolyte coverage. Any other words to say on that, Ken?
As always, we miss Jennifer and her perspective, but sometimes life and holidays and trips and school and projects get in the way. So
that is exactly right. All right, we are going to discuss Season 1, Episode 6, Teach/Corrupt, written by Leslie Headland and Jocelyn Bio, that's the pronunciation, according to Jocelyn Bio's Instagram, directed by Hanel M. Culpepper. So the director, we love to look at who some of these fresh names in Star Wars are. Hanel M. Culpepper has a long career with short films in indie features. And then over the last 10 years or so, a lot of television work, a lot of episodic television, everything from 90210 to The Flash to Castle to Gotham to Kung Fu, many, many more different episodic shows. Wikipedia also says Culpepper became the first woman director and the first African-American director to launch a new Star Trek series in the franchise's history when she directed the opening 3 episodes of Star Trek Picard in 2020. Everyone's favorite year, 2020. But an interesting addition to the Star Wars team and to the Acolyte team. Written, as we said, by Leslie Headland, which I feel like we're all familiar with Leslie Headland, and Jocelyn Bio. Jocelyn Bio is a very successful playwright, including her most recent work, Jaja's African Hair Braiding, is a comedy that was a Broadway debut in the fall of 2023 and was nominated for a Tony. So kind of impressive resume there in the theatrical side. Her TV credits include Russian Doll as an actor, because she's also an actor. And then she was a writer on a show that I know nothing about called Tiny Beautiful Things, and now a producer-writer here on The Acolyte. Any thoughts on these continuing roll call of new names in Star Wars?
Yeah, as we keep saying, the table getting bigger. With the writing, that makes sense. There's theater, Broadway, one-on-one scenes, great dialogue to get it through. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And then because it's an and not an ampersand, it sounds like Leslie might have either given her the script or taken the script to work on this. And it makes a lot of sense. I love it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, a lot of this does have this could be a dramatic play of that, this great parallel between the flipped student and the flipped master, just like I flipped words at the top of this show. So with that in mind, with all these wonderful new additions to the Star Wars team, we are going to talk about overall reaction. Now, this is kind of intriguing to me, Ken, is often you and I share just like a brief overview of what'd you think before we actually hit the record button.
Too busy to
But we were both running late, fixing some tech issues. So I actually don't know. I'm finding out for the first time in front of the fans and the YouTube gods and everybody what your overall reaction to this episode of The Acolyte was.
I'm going to describe it as mixed, leaning towards positive. There were several times, especially upon first viewing, that I went, ooh, oh, that's going to be fun to discuss. And that's going to be fun to discuss. I think at one point when I was doing my notes this morning, I just realized I was writing every Chimere line down. Like literally, I don't have a lot of themes and stuff. We always get to themes, but I have some like, yeah, those are the themes. Here's his lies. And I just wrote them down. So yeah, a lot of fun to discuss. That's why I'm here. I even had a conversation with a couple friends this week via text, and my feeling is, I really like the show. I think it's good, but I still have even more fun discussing it, and that's kind of where I am even now, 6 episodes in, especially after last week's episode being so tense and so violent and so in our faces. There's that phrase. That's what I meant to use earlier. It's not even a letdown. This is what I would expect in the episode. We have a little bit of a refractory period here where we needed to slow down, and I think it did exactly what I would have wanted it to do, and I think the series needed at this point. As we're racing towards final 2 episodes, which is going to include a big flashback, I'm sure. I even thought that we were going to get a little do here, but
Nope.
probably next week, leading on stuff. So yeah, all there on it. Big stuff.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. I like 90% enjoyed this episode, and then some of the elements of pacing, both internal to the episode and also how much plot, how many events happen in the episode, plagued me a little bit on this one, as well as it has in a couple of the other episodes. Mostly just the episode day, and then this one I felt a little bit of the same vibe. But for the stuff that I loved big overall, I agree with you. I think it was appropriate after the horror and the shock and the violence of the episode Night to have the characters process it. So I did like that this vibe of sadness and foreboding and that very tentative, like after all of that violence, what are we safe to say? Who can we trust? Can we even trust our own feelings? It was a very post-traumatic event episode, and I really like that. There are some fantastic soul moments in particular. I think he's been fantastic throughout the series, but I think this episode is like start the Lee Jung-jae Emmy campaign now moments for me. I enjoyed that this was an episode, we'll talk a ton about it, that was so taking the big picture themes that the show's been dealing with about May and Osha going on these parallel journeys and making it really explicit to the point where it does feel like a Broadway play, and like, let's cut over to this two-hander scene. Let's cut over to this two-hander scene with the lighting change. I really enjoyed that. I think the entire episode had both this feeling that I think is totally appropriate to the episode, and also the thing that plagued me a little bit was that the entire episode felt a little bit like a pregnant pause before somebody says something devastating. I've always loved that term, pregnant pause. I don't know if anybody finds it problematic, but but that idea that you can feel somebody said a half a sentence, and then there's this weighted, deep breath before they say the end of the sentence. That's really either going to be maybe a relief or a gut punch. They like, you're auditioning for a show, you've interviewed for a job, like, well, we have a decision. Weighted pregnant pause. In the episode, I think benefited from that because I think it is this tentative. Who can we trust? Who can we open up to? What are May and Osha going to choose? Are they with the right master that they need? So all these great things. But in terms of a pacing of an individual television show in a larger story, I think I felt similarly that I did about the episode Day, of like, I would prefer shows that aren't just pregnant pause, but at least have sort of the beginning of the next sentence. In terms of a pacing vibe for myself. Does that make sense to you at all? Is both a compliment and a criticism?
Yeah. No, I absolutely think it does. You and I have had this ongoing conversation about endings and runtimes, and we're not the only one. And look, I got to say, I think there's this bigger conversation to have, but also a bigger conversation to wonder about not just Disney, but Disney and Marvel, Star Wars and Marvel are in these conversations. I just kind of wonder sometimes what are the reasons for some of the decisions behind minutes, and what that could mean. And there's a pregnant pause, right? Is it nefarious? Is it a show wraps after 3 seasons, so you don't have to bump up everyone's pay in season 4? We've talked about that before. Is there something about time, allotted minutes? What's the rationale behind some of it? Because it's not just that I want more time. It's just 5 minutes, 10 minutes. I don't need 60 minutes, and that comes up for me every week. And I don't need to put it into. Like I said, that doesn't take away from me going, oh, Chimere's lying. Oh, he's selling a false truth. I'm really enjoying that. Watched this episode 3 times already, which the smaller runtime makes it more possible to do. You know what I mean? So I don't know if I don't want to speak for you, put words in your mouth. I just come away from that a lot with each episode of what was the decision to make this show and others at times seems shorter. And I'm not talking about Bad Batch, which is a different vibe for me.
No, Bad Batch is relatively consistent runtime, and I feel like even when I had an episode of Bad Batch, it was like, oh, I wish the plot moved a little bit more because I'm so anxious. It still felt like each episode of this is kind of a, half hour-ish installment, usually with its own idea. And I agree with you. I think my wrestling with it isn't just about the Acolyte. It's about this sort of limited series, kind of somewhere between a movie, somewhere between an episode or a season of television that Disney in particular has been doing with Star Wars and Marvel that I don't even for myself think of it as any sort of criticism to the writers, because I so feel that there is some sort of corporate tension of, hey, should we make this a movie? Should we make this a television show? Can you expand it? Actually, can you expand it, but only keep it to this budget? But can you also give us 8 episodes? For me, that's what I'm sensing of writers really trying to tell the best story they can under different corporate guidelines to keep according this story in length. Go this way in length, go this way in budget, but also give us this many episodes, because it's nothing about the quality of the episode. It's nothing about the ideas of the episode. It's not even about the runtime of the episode for me. For me, it's about this team knows their story. And it really is these decisions of how much story are we putting in this episode? And that's what I'm responding to. And it feels much more to me like behind the scenes decisions of corporate stuff than any, like, the writers are doing a bad job. That is not what it is to me.
Yeah, as you know, all these things are not made in a vacuum, and it's not like the writers pound it out on a typewriter and say, here it is, and that's the end of it, and no one goes over this. Dave Filoni doesn't look at it, and Caddy Monday conversations aren't had. It's not just simply Lucasfilm, sure, but Disney. It's a businessy conversation that, again, nothing new. You're trying to make a movie now. There's going to be a point of, I don't have the money for that shot, but I have the money for this shot. That's not new. That's art. I'm just feeling it more with some of these streamers, and I want to make sure I'm not yelling at clouds and not getting into the weeds in some of the conversations on socials. But I personally am feeling that for a lot of shows right now.
Yeah.
And this is one of them.
Yeah, and I think I maybe feel it a little bit more for a show like Acolyte, where I'm really invested. I think the questions that are being raised are great, and I think sometimes I'm like, I'm anxious to get to the answer, and I feel like a show with a different budget would have longer episodes, and we would get more of those substantive things, per week. We're now on 3 weeks in a row where Saul has said, "Okay, I'll tell you everything," and he still hasn't told us everything, and that's about the amount of plot that is in per episode. Again, for me, it isn't about the runtime. It isn't. It isn't about patience. To me, it's about the structure of storytelling. Of like, you've successfully piqued my interest. Yeah. Now I would love the answers. Anyway, moving on from that criticism, because we've talked about it plenty, I think.
Yeah, that's kind of,
last overall thing that I'll say, which is a big positive of what I really, really love about the Acolyte, in everything that Leslie Headland has said about the Sith perspective, I think is really coming true. And I think what you're responding to with Chimere, we talked a lot last week about his false equivalence. I think the show is doing a great job tempting the audience with the Sith perspective. Making it
good of a
sound,
job.
Too good in my opinion. Making it sound good, making it come from a guy who's charming wounded, sexy,
Mm-hmm.
you know, no yellow eyes, hacked off limbs, wizened fingers, rotting teeth, it's
Mm-hmm.
coming from a charming, attractive, wounded bad boy who's just asking questions and pointing out that other people did bad things and doesn't want to be
Yeah.
alone. I think the show is doing such a great job tempting us with the Sith perspective from this
Yeah.
great character. But in my analysis, at every turn, based on the actions of the characters, the show is reinforcing the Jedi perspective. The
Mm-hmm.
characters who are succeeding are facing their fears. They're admitting their faults. They are striving for honest connection and intimacy. They are rejecting revenge. They are defining themselves by their choices, not blaming others. I feel
Mm-hmm.
like the show on the surface is like, Chimere's got some points, but I feel like in its heart, in its fundamental building blocks, is reinforcing again and again and again these
Mm-hmm.
fundamentals of being a good Jedi and a good person are what's going to win the day.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, you and I are going to have a lot of fun here in a second discussing all this. I think we're in an agreement, and some highlights for me. Jung Jae's acting. He fills the screen. He fills the screen in a way that I really appreciate in this series. I love the stuff with the ambitious senator trying to get a thing with the Jedi. Talk about that. Mog is a superstar. I'm on the Mog squad. But the big highlight for me, you kind of touched on it, but I unlocked it in my brain this week. Chimere, I get it. He's a podcaster, just asking questions, man. I'm just here to ask questions. Last week he quoted Jordan Peterson. That you and I, Jen, we didn't discuss that because thank God I don't have Jordan Peterson quotes memorized, but the internet found that out by the time.
Which one was the Jordan Peterson quote from last week?
The last quote.
Oh, okay. Is it rephrasing?
Yeah. I heard. Again, what do you trust on social? I heard it say
yeah,
beat for beat. Word for
I'll
word.
Google it. I'll Google it. Yeah,
and,
see.
And here he is this week, just logical fallacies, straw man concepts, all these. He's just a podcaster asking questions, and I love it as just as much as I am afraid, because sometimes the conversation around it is like, I'm listening. Chimere's doing great. He's got great points. Like, oh, okay.
Yeah, and he's got that moment where he said, "I made a mistake with May." We know he never took the helmet off with May. We know he maybe offered her some kindness and sympathy and support in his guise of Chimere, but I think he probably took a harder edged approach with her because he had the mask on the whole time, and he was probably selling her more on revenge and power. So this is also fun to see him going like, let me try it a different way. Let me try the wounded bad boy approach rather than the furious alpha male approach that he tried with May, I believe. Anyway. We're already getting into the big theme, so let's just dive all the way in. For you, besides Chimere's podcast corner, Chimere's questions. Chimere just asking questions.
Yeah, man. Yeah.
What other big ideas pop to you, and we can dive in.
Yeah, so I'll just Sorry, I'm not as organized on it today. I
fine.
literally was just so focused on what was there. But obviously the episode. I love these titles, by the way. These titles help a dummy like me go, "Oh, this is about teaching, or is it corruption?" And those are the things. So obviously that's at stake, and we're talking about it. Some things that jumped out to me that I really enjoyed was the idea of how and what. Are we communicating? The inability for Soul to get through, and then him cutting off. But also him kind of having this it's time for me to go to the High Council, come clean, make things right. I'm going to communicate everything there. Then you got on the other side, Basil needs to speak the truth. He's got a truth he needs to tell. And can he use a droid? Can he use that? And I think all that kind of stuff is flowing into what's going on. And we got the relationships with the master and the pupil, this idea of it's a special relationship. And is that good? Is that bad? But the illusion of choice. Chimere at every step of the way is offering Osha a choice, offering a choice. And ain't that great of him? Whereas, Souls, he's actually imprisoned May. He's stunned her and strapped her to a table. He also was there to try to arrest her. She was also trying to kill him. So, maybe I would have done that too. But that's where I want to, start to dig in. And that's where I go the list of Kymir's lies. Call him Kymir, stranger, whatever his name will eventually be revealed as the truth. But all through it, man, that's where I go. The illusion of choice, the surface level communication that's going on.
Yeah, no, I think this episode was masterful to make you to kind of flip the script. We've talked a lot about duality a lot in this show, and the show is inviting it with the titles of the episodes, with them being twins, with a comparison of Jedi and Sith philosophy and Jedi and witch philosophy and whatever really happened between those two philosophies, whatever they really are. Because even in that flashback episode we had, the witches and the Jedi were opposed to one another, and yet most of their philosophies seem to line up. So I can't wait until we get that flashback episode and see how they may be different. So I love that they kept playing with this sort of duality, and the duality almost being a trap of being like, be careful of making it that simple. In this episode did that again great by having pointing out what was similar and what was different. The Jedi and the Sith both have a master and apprentice relationship, and this whole episode is predicated on what is the value and what is the danger of that relationship. The real specific literal of May and Osha, flipping masters. Both masters seem to want May and Osha, their students, to know the full truth of Brendok, but for opposing reasons. Kymir hopes that it will break Osha and make her give in to anger and violence and revenge and be his pawn. And Soul is hoping that if he tells the truth to May, even if the truth is awful, that maybe it will heal. What are your thoughts on that?
Sorry to cut you off, but I think that's, I love hearing you say that, because one of the things we've said for years around here is light side builds, dark side destroys. And then you got someone here, this Sith adjacent, Sith fan, who knows? The details will come out. I still think Sith. Knights of Ren got it, but it seems with interviews this week that some of that's changed.
Yeah, we can talk a lot about that in canon, because juicy, exciting
juicy stuff. But what you're saying is as tough as it feels to hear Saul cry and he's upset, and crying stuff's not the problem, you know what I mean? But just like he's strapping her down, he's stunning her, he's cutting off communication, he's jumping to light speed right as help comes in, all these kind of things. At the end of the day, I think exactly what you're saying. I will tell you the truth so that you will know the true picture and you will understand and you can go forward from there. Where Kymir, even with the thing with his master, right? Like, do I think it's a chance it's Vernestra and her light whip? Yeah, that makes sense. Do I think it's more his Sith master? Yeah, but it's like with him, it's like, oh, were you hurt by your master, or did you try to kill your master? So we need that truth, and he wants that truth to absolutely pull Osha down into the pit even more. And I think you're really right about that.
Yeah, I can't wait to get a little bit more to see how, if indeed it is the flashback episode that we kind of, if anybody has watched the trailers, we know there's more flashback. I won't say any details for anybody who hasn't seen them, but we know there's more flashback. So I'm fascinated. It's so teed up as Soul finally shares the truth. I'm so curious to see how it's sort of framed, if it is also sort of Kymir telling his version to Osha as well, or Osha remembering stuff that she didn't when she's in that sensory deprivation helmet. Yeah, I think a part of what makes all this so powerful too is that everything about the episode has some like flip coding, where May starts out thinking that she is in control. She is the one who knows what's going on that ship, and she is sneaking up behind him with the knife, and he doesn't know what's going on. And by the end, she is tied up and being asked to just please listen. Osha starts the episode feeling like a prisoner, where in reality she's just being manipulated, and then ends the episode by making a choice to put on the helmet. So there's a lot of flipping of that. And even I thought the environments felt flipped, to keep selling us this, like, doesn't the Sith perspective sound good? Don't you want to subscribe to Kymir's Questions, the podcast? Because the Sith base, and we'll get to what the planet is when we discuss canon, but wherever the stranger's base is, That planet looks beautiful. That cave looks cozy and healing. Osha's literally being healed. There are cute little animals there.
Oh
Uh,
yeah.
and in contrast, the Jedi ship is broken, powerless, and shadowy, full of conflict in competing perspectives and miscommunications. It's I think everything that ends up happening on the Jedi ship, the Jedi space, is actually good. And I feel like everything that is happening in the stranger's cozy cave is very, very bad and manipulative. But visually, they're swapped. Star Wars can sometimes be very, very literal.
Yeah.
Of evil things happen on Mustafar because it's a boiling lava planet, and Alderaan is a peaceful, verdant space. Sometimes it's really straightforward, and I feel like this episode used the language of Star Wars to flip the Sith and Jedi just dynamics of the spaces to help with this manipulation.
Really agree with you. We'll talk about the planet. I've got Wikipedia up. We'll take that dive later in canon. You're right. I really love what you're saying, and not to jump too far ahead or too much around, but Chimere selling the emotions, right? Anger, this, desire. That island's got all of it. You want to take a naked swim? Come on in here. I think you had eyes for Jackie, but you want to take a naked swim? Get in here if you want. You hungry? You want? There's that ship. You want to get in the water? It's nice here. Look
Whatever
at those cute
you
elephant
want.
birds. Whatever you want.
You're free.
Whatever you want.
Yeah.
You're free. You're free.
Yeah.
And it's yeah, you're right. It's big flip.
Yeah. Yeah. One other big picture thing from what we've been tracking throughout the show is this idea of facing your fear and facing yourself and facing the past. It's been made explicit. I feel like with only 2 episodes left, this is the heart of the show. Whatever happened on Brendok is just, that's the heart of the show of like, can people move on from that trauma? In this episode, Soul is deeply committed to doing this, even when he's rattled, traumatized, doesn't appear to know that that is May yet. He says, I got to put this right. I will put myself in front of the Jedi High Council and I will tell them the truth. He seems to make this Jedi choice of, yeah, I know by the book I'm supposed to stay here for the rescue team, but I need to make this right. I need to put my focus on this woman and what she needs to hear, which is the truth. So Soul is doing this thing that's been the show is putting forward of, can you face your fear? Can you face the past in order to move on? And Soul's like, yep, let's do it. I think Osha is beginning to do that by putting the helmet on. I think there's she's repressed in some way about what happened on Brendok. She's repressed in some way about using her Force abilities or tapping into maybe, the powers that come from her heritage as a witch. But I felt like this episode ended on her going, I am going to face myself. I'm going to shut off everything else in the world but myself and my relationship to the Force. I think May's a maybe. After she hears what the Jedi did and what Soul did, maybe she'll be able to face her fear. And maybe her fear is, what if Indara and Kelnaka and Torben all did awful crap? And what Soul did wasn't that bad. And the last one that she allegedly wants to kill is actually the one being kind to her and didn't actually do anything that awful. And she'd have to face that fear of like, I got nothing left to lash out at. So I feel like May's kind of a maybe in this, but to your point about Chimere, he's not facing a damn thing. He has no reflection. He is just wallowing in his own pain, and I'm sorry, but just basic Sith bullshit. He is reading out of the pamphlet. Just
He really is.
It's so compelling as television, and he's a compelling character. But what he's actually saying is like, basic bullshit. You are a basic Sith, Chimere, from your perspective. There's no facing your fear. There's no facing yourself. There's no facing the past. It's just all the basic stuff. So I wanted to share my own kind of opinions about if the question of the show is, can you face your fear? Who's doing a good job?
Yeah, I'm really intrigued by what you said about the May stuff for a second. I'm wondering what that truth will be, because she has that great moment. She kind of gets caught because of the Pip stuff, right? Her connection to that makeshift, I grabbed anything and put it on type of vibe, factory setting, reset. I think part of clue that Soul digs in on for sure.
Mm-hmm.
But what you're talking about too, of just like if she reveals truth, this idea that she's like, yeah, May always you're right, May always did care about the butterflies and the droids and those things, and she had to give that up because she cared about me. She had to give that up. And if once that flip comes out, once that truth comes out, and where does she take that and maybe face that you May were the one trapped or anything? We're feeling a lot of details from a thing we haven't seen yet, to be clear.
Yeah.
But you got me wondering in a great way.
I do think I do think May is actually doing some facing herself and facing some reflection, because when she is talking, when the dime hasn't dropped for Soul yet, and he's feeling horrible that he didn't recognize, that he didn't sense, that villain's true intentions when they met Chimere on Olega. She's got the great line about hiding, that he's really good at hiding what he's feeling. I wrote it down and I'm trying to find it here. She says, I think when you really want something, it can cloud your mind. You see what you want to do. You see what you want to see. He fooled us all. I do think that's a moment, an honest moment from May, where she's reflecting on, he promised me all this stuff that sounded good. And I personally killed 2 of the Jedi. A third's dead. And here's this sad, broken guy who I still kind of want to kill, but is still, but is lamenting all of his failures and his losses. And I think she's thinking, like, I made a deal with the devil. This guy kind of promised he'd care about me, that we'd be the power of 2 and we'd take the galaxy on together. And then I put one foot out of place and he's going to mock me and kill me. I think that line is a little bit of like, yeah, he fooled me.
100% agree with that. Absolutely. And now how she's got to be feeling at this point, and maybe some that was revealed on the way to the episode night of damn, I did fall for those emotions, and I'm really empty still. I'm really empty still.
Yeah. And is looking to fill that void by, connecting with Osha, but Osha wasn't having it. I want to talk a little bit about this idea of intimacy that I thought was really interesting in the episode, and I think that we'll get into a lot of the Chimere's questions within that. But I thought in some ways that was the most fresh and interesting idea in this episode, that everybody's recovering from this trauma that we're talking about. This episode is about the master and apprentice relationship, that intimacy that's needed between the master and the pupil, and that intimacy requires kind of pushing past fear, is so much of this based on. Chimere's got the quote right at the beginning about Soul, saying to Osha, he taught you the Jedi arts, but he's more to you than that. A special relationship, isn't it? Master and pupil. So right away, we're sort of introduced to the idea that both of these new couplings of master and pupil have to deal with sort of the intimacy of, in order to get anything out of this relationship, we kind of got to open up to each other. And we get this great contrast in 2 of the first scenes of different kinds of frightening intimacy. Soul becomes emotionally nude in a way that we don't see Jedi usually do, and I bet Jedi Masters in particular. Soul has been coded as, when he was young, he was so shy. He so wanted family. He wears his heart on his cool Jedi robe sleeve. But even that would have probably been a shock even for Osha. The hugging Osha in relief, in guilt, in pain, and thanking her for saving him. It's just total emotional nudity, which is immediately contrasted, or I think the scenes are the other way around, with Chimere's manipulative, actual physical nudity, which is playing in a really manipulative way with the ideas of intimacy. It is about, I think there is a level that is just about attraction and desire, since the word desire is actually used, which we can talk about. But it's also, yet again, another way to poke on, oh, I thought the Jedi didn't kill defenseless people. You're going to strike me down while I'm nude? I know you want to. And I mean, maybe you should. It's 2 different kinds of really effective, frightening intimacy, but very, very different motivations behind them. Soul's is completely honest, scary because it's so honest, and Chimere's is uncomfortable because it's such a manipulation.
Emotionally nude is up there with emotional canon. Is a new ForceCenter favorite. I absolutely think you're right. The rawness of the performance of Soul hugging with the power and the tears and even when he's crying, he's got tears in his eyes for most of this episode. And you're
Mm-hmm.
right, we don't see that a lot in Jedi, but that doesn't mean it doesn't happen. We just haven't spent as much time with it, and it becomes just as powerful in playing it against what you're talking about, the Sith butt of it all, right? Just come on in, the water's fine. And you're right, and I think it absolutely has a little bit to do with desire, and absolutely it's we joked that Last Jedi's hand touch between Kylo and Rey might have been the closest we've had to a Star Wars sex scene on screen. We've had them in the books, by the way, but and I don't think it's about just that, but it is playing with that idea. I know Leslie Headland's got great interviews out this week. I haven't read all of them, just saw some clips, but hey, really, she always loved that Anakin was seduced by the dark side of the Force. Let's play with that and what that word means all around, beyond just the surface level of it all. I really agree with you. The dueling nude scenes.
They're duly nude scenes, and to really get into the Chimere, the stranger, and everything that you're responding to, I think what was fascinating to him is there's all sorts of manipulation of Osha. I think he is honest in that he is lonely and aware of it.
Yes.
Saying I thought that it turns out May I thought she wanted more than revenge. He gets asked again what he wants, and this time the answer is a little different than freedom to use his power. Now it's the power of two, which is playing on, the language of Osha's culture with the witches of, the power of one, the power of two, the power of many. But it's also got this really great, okay, Star Wars lore heads can interpret the power of two as I need my apprentice and then we'll kill the master. And that's, I'm following the Sith lineage. I thought she wanted that. I thought she wanted the galaxy. I thought she wanted more. But the power of two also just sounds like, some bad 80s song with a lot of sax, of just like intimacy, the power of two,
Ain't wrong.
but I love the ambiguity of that line, but I do read him as like truly lonely, truly wanting companionship, truly wounded by all of his various rejections from a Jedi, I think, from a Sith, I think, from May, I think. Who knows how many other acolytes he tried who rejected him.
Right.
He legitimately doesn't want to be alone in his little comfy, cozy cave. But he is also so steeped in Sith dogma and so believes it, he also knows it's entirely impossible. So he's trying to get Osha to take his hand, knowing he's going to take it away.
Yeah, I think there was a great shot of, I don't know what they are now, elephant birds, and a lot of people think they either evolve into porgs or grow up to be sirens. I don't think this is Octo. It's close, but we'll see. Doesn't matter right now. But even there's that one shot of them as a family, right? And we talk about Star Wars. Obviously, it's about family. It's about
Nuzzling
family.
their little trunks.
Yeah, but that one, they got the little tiny one, and they're wearing it. It's
very cute.
I took that as absolutely a thesis statement of a shot of these elephant birds, of what is missing in a lot of people's lives here, and particularly in Chimere. And again, starting his list of lies starts with Osha waking up. Also, poor girl wakes up like that all the time. God, that's horrible. Take some melatonin. I don't know.
Does the camera have to flip every time I wake up? And that's, you're having a rough time when the camera flips almost every time you wake up, which is a cool shot, and I really like that they used it twice. I'm not criticizing it.
No, I actually like it, but it's George Clooney and Oh Brother, We're Out There. Oh, my hair, just waking up every time. But she wakes up and she's healed, right? He's mended her. He's trying to give her this idea of comfort here, supported, and I just, it's fascinating. But the game starts there with him, and I think you're right, because at the end of the day, he is feeling these pains. He is feeling lonely. He wants someone around.
I felt like one of his best lies, if he was going to put out a mixtape of his best lies in manipulations, was that line to her about why does she go, why does she want a relationship from people who can only half love her?
Yes.
We got a great question when we're doing the live stream about sort of thematically how would Jecki and Yord's journey go forward? Like, why were their deaths not just shock value? And one of the things we talked about is, well, because they carry these thematic statements with them, and how are they going to affect things going forward, and how are they going to affect the budding relationship between Jecki and Osha was really used well here. About were they going to be friends? Was there flirtation? Whatever. But Chimere's line is, you would have had the same relationship with her, Jecki, that you have with your master. One-sided. Why do you love people who can only go so far, who can't go as deep as you can? And that is kind of a PG-13, from our day, cable up all night kind of line, Did you want someone who can go as deep as you can? But I love it as a lie because it's saying it's playing on the fears of Jedi criticism of they're cold, they're distant, they're maybe even, asexual. They don't even have desire. Maybe they don't even feel the kind of things that you feel. All that stuff is sort of implicit in what he's saying. But in theory, by criticizing the Jedi, he's offering an alternative in himself of like, wouldn't you rather be with me who can go all the way, who can go as deep as you can? But only a little while later, she says, I don't trust you. And he's like, yeah, you're right. You shouldn't. It's the total Sith, like, don't buy the used car that's going to break down from the Jedi. Buy it from me. But it sounds like what he's saying is, don't buy a used car from the Jedi. I can get you a new car. When he knows, no, I've got an even worse used car is what I'm actually going to give you. But I'm going to convince you that the Jedi are trying to swindle you when I have an even crappier used car to sell you. Because not only am I not going to love you back, it is necessary for our relationship that you try to defeat me and then I dominate you. That's our relationship. And I know it's going to be. I know that's the curse of the Sith relationship because I said it out loud in monologue form when I was looking down at you. That even in my triumph, I'm doomed to be alone. I thought that was one of the best lies because it sounds so good, but he doesn't have anything better to offer.
I think you could counter everything Chimere says with a version of to do what? How did that happen? What do you want? Like, I think you could counter it with those kind of thoughts there. And my thought, and I don't know how you feel about this, it's more a thought or a theory than any kind of factual reading of the text of the series here. But when he's saying that stuff about Jecki and everything, there's some rules that might prohibit some of this stuff, particularly if it's a romantic connection that Osha was feeling with Jecki, which I think is very much in play. I think it was played for that, I think at least. And, of him just going, but it couldn't work. It would stop there. And what just a shutting off, right? You could say it's fear, or he's trying to manipulate your fear, or, you know how it goes. You know how it goes, and you don't know how it goes. This is a series we talk about duality, but it's also about those choices. And so it's like he's just basically saying, you would have been hurt. Would I have happened? Yeah. You would have been hurt. Trust me. You would have been hurt. I won't hurt you.
It is also, like you did last episode, a real successful pivot of like, we were talking about why I murdered her, but let me tell you why she wouldn't have been a good girlfriend. It's a pretty awful gear switch, Yeah.
Sorry, just a lot of yes for me because it's just he was a master. He was a master at this, even though he might be the apprentice, but he's the master at this.
I love what you're saying. I feel like almost everything he says could maybe be countered with. You're right. That could be a flaw, and maybe that should be addressed. How would you improve on that? And then he doesn't answer.
Yes.
How would you handle it? You're right. That wasn't handled as well as it could be. How would you handle it differently? No answer.
Yeah. Well, no. Yeah. It's just because he has that line early on. He has a line that wrote, "How does it feel? Feels good, huh?" Yeah. And it's like you just want to. He's the. I hate to do the corporate speak of it's not a problem unless you have a solution, but it's that spirit to me of God, that sucks. What would you do? I don't know, but that sucks. It's not. I'm not. I don't have to make the decision. It's not. It's not my call to make it better. That sucks, though, right? It's just. It's so corrosive. It's corrosive. The dark
It's
side
tempting.
destroys.
Yeah, it's tempting, and I think that's part of what's such a great sort of Sith temptation of us as the audience, almost being seduced by Chimere, because we're all drawn to that, and you can see that in every walk of life where people are like, "Here's how I run a Hollywood studio." Like, cool, but you would you?
Would you?
You don't have to. Like there's a lot of political elements of here. Let me critique the other side with no example of what I do, or anyway. I'm not gonna. Anyway.
Yeah, no, I know it rubs up against something extra real right now, but it just like that played out, and again, like, how does it feel? Does it feel good? Sunday night when I had an entire pepperoni pizza at a bar and grill in about 6 minutes, that felt great. Not the next day, not the next day. So I don't know, Chimere. How will it feel? How will it actually feel?
Yeah. Well, Ken, here, the two of us alone, let's talk about lust and desire.
Let's do it.
I thought that was really interesting. I didn't hear any of Leslie Headland's new interviews.
Yeah, I didn't take a lot of it in either, too, by the way. So yeah.
Okay, that was fascinating that we got the list of here are the emotions that are boiling under the surface in the subconscious that the Jedi don't want you to deal with: anger, heard it; fear, heard it; loss, kind of heard it; desire, it's been implied but haven't heard it. That's never been in the list. What's been discussed in both, in my opinion, in the prequel films and in books is that, like, yeah, loving people is great. Intimacy is great. What you need to do is not make this attachment where you have promised yourself to someone where you feel like you possess them, where you are afraid to lose them. But there's even been some things in the books of like, hey, Jedi have feelings, and maybe sometimes they fool around a little bit because that's natural, and they explore that and they discover that, but they don't make an attachment. Here he's saying something different and playing something different in the entire episode of like that desire, that wanting something. I think here it's definitely played sexually with all of his nudity games and basically saying, Jackie couldn't go as deep as you could is, to me, very romance and sexually coded. But I also think it's too like, hey, you see that frozen pizza and you're really hungry and you want to eat it and you're supposed to split it, but you're going to eat more than half. You want that. Don't like, I think he's talking about desire in a sexual way, but I think he's also talking about just the act of wanting something because Jedi are so selfless.
Yeah, and that's also, I always want to point out, too, that when it comes to just the Jedi, some of that's because they got a job to do, right? It's a little bit of a job to do. But yeah, the amount of Jedi that Elzar Mann, Rael Averross, I would love to see this dealt with in a story about young Obi-Wan and Satine. That would be really explicit, and I like seeing it played with here, by the way. I think it's great. I think, this show is seducing us. It's seducing us, and it's doing it in a challenging way. But yeah, no, I'm with you on it. It's he talks often about you had to give up yourself. May hints at it maybe even more of she had to give up herself to be a Jedi, and how you can turn that around to be very, very negative. And this is, at the pool of lust is where it's coming into play.
So in terms of the talking points that Chimere has, he's repeating similar ones of give in to your anger. Only your hatred can destroy me. Your anger gives you focus, all that stuff. Yeah. Even Palpatine's manipulation of Anakin, like to save the one you love is about love. This is poking at something different, which is sort of feral animal desire, be it in my case, sometimes for physical intimacy, but sometimes I want to buy that action figure. I shouldn't just desire the strong wanting of something. Do you buy his line? Is that an accurate criticism of the Jedi that they are not only too rigid about their marriage rules, but that they are incomplete beings because they don't allow themselves to express desire, to express sexuality. Are you buying that criticism? Is that a moment where you're like, I know you're no good, Chimera, but good point.
I wouldn't do it, right? I wouldn't do it, but I don't have what I might believe is this higher purpose. I think also, and your question's great, but it's like sometimes the conversation around these shows can we even just it gets to real world. We're talking about frozen pizzas and more, but it gets to real world where like the Jedi have it's a mythical kind of quality to what they're doing. Of it's a higher calling, and love can be the death of duty, but that doesn't mean you can't experience love. And also, I don't know. You know what I mean? It's a higher calling. It's a higher understanding of it, of what Chimere is selling, and even what a little bit of going on with Palpatine and the Anakin of it all. It's like sometimes the criticism of Anakin in the prequels is he wasn't a really good boyfriend. He was really possessive and controlling. And I'm like, yeah, exactly. And we can have conversations about that. I think it should feel somewhat uncomfortable. And another conversation another time. And I think the Jedi way stands in opposition of that, of this all-encompassing desire that will overtake everyone, overtake you. That's, to me, more of a true loss of self than the idea of control. I'm just trying to justify why I wouldn't be on the Jedi Order, but I still like it, Justin.
I understand. I think I love that this show is taking well-known lore in philosophy and playing with it, and I like that.
Yes.
This is, stop denying your sexuality is not a selling point that Palpatine works real hard on. I mean, he's got the lines about Padme to Anakin, but Chimere, no yellow eyes. He's got the scar, but it's like a cool, unwounded scar. No rotten teeth.
What this?
Sexy as hell. Going, they're not, the Jedi don't want to be sexy. For me, it's again like, okay, well, maybe the Jedi's relationship to desire and sexuality is, maybe you got a point. But what I feel like he's saying is you can never have an emotionally rewarding relationship with the Jedi. They will never allow themselves to be truly intimate with you. And the whole Soul side of this episode is calling bullshit on that. Because Soul is coded is extremely emotional and not a weakness. He's shy. He loves those younglings he's teaching. He bonded with Osha. We'll see if it caused any problems, but he saw himself in Osha and wanted to take her to a family where she would feel whole like he did. That man's in his emotions, not afraid to hug her, not afraid to go, I effed up and you saved me. Thank you. And not afraid to go, yeah, May, I maybe ruined your entire life. And I'm going to bare my soul and tell you what I did and tell you why. Even his line of like, I've been thinking about what to say to you for 16 years. That's all intimacy. That's all a depth of relationship that Soul is offering that Chimera is claiming the Jedi don't have to offer. Yes,
and big win on that point there too. I think everything you said. I think May has again. At what point Saul figured it out? Whatever. I think early on, I'm choosing to say that he didn't really know. And that hug. I want to make sure I'm not implying that was.
No,
in the desire category, but the hug was real. The hug was strong, and I think May has that kind of feel of like, well, I wasn't getting this from the stranger. She never even seen him without his mask off.
Yeah.
To your point about him maybe playing up changing his strategy with Osha, but like this, that is a real connection. I didn't get that. May's probably been going for 16 years thinking that there's nothing. It's sterile, and maybe the Jedi Order has those things going on the outside, and the hallways are nice and clean on the ships and in the temples. Got it. But I think that was a pretty powerful moment of like, this is really me. This is connection, and how sometimes you see it's played with the previous week, he even mentions it. He took me to a bad spot because I do have these connections. I do have these guilts. I do have these wants to keep you safe or your sister safe. And he pushed me to the point of I almost gave myself up and cut him down in hate and anger and all those kind of big mythical things. But I think you're right. It is a more real connection than what's being provided over on beautiful blank bleep island to bring in an Arrested Development joke.
Yeah, and I think even a Jedi like Obi-Wan, my favorite, I think he's very emotional. I think he's very intimate. It's not like he's like, the Satine made me feel funny things and I ran away. He had to choose between two deep, passionate loves: his love of Satine and his love of being a Jedi. And he talks often in various Kenobi stories about the Jedi as family, Anakin as his brother, the great moment in Kenobi where he tells Leia about relating to her as somebody who is adopted by a new family who loved him just as much. And like, he sometimes thinks about his original family and wonders, he thinks he had a brother, but when the Jedi adopted him, he had this new family. Oh, that's warm. That's intimate. That's a different kind of love. It might not be, let's get married, have lots of sex and babies, but there is still warmth, intimacy, love.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. And a lot of what you're talking about, too, it deals with the ideas of change. And I'm not saying anything that he's talking about is easy to go through, right? Again, that's where sometimes I think it's even dangerous to spin it out directly to the real world or your own lives. Though it's what we love doing around here because that's what makes Star Wars powerful. But what Obi-Wan's talking about is to me, a lesson on change or taking the step forward and finding what's new for you there and not being afraid to maybe step out, not being afraid to leave stuff behind. And I think that's a lot of what Osha, was going through early on. You've said some wonderful stuff about it. This is great, but I want a new community, and I'm feeling that, and that's real to me. And I'm taking that step, and maybe like she liked the droid, she liked the butterfly, she liked me, and she left it, and that's gonna hurt. That hurts, absolutely. But you got to find the new normal beyond that.
Yeah. One other big thing I wanted to talk about in this episode is just these kind of games of awareness of who's aware of what. Because I think it kind of ties back to the very early scenes of Soul teaching the younglings and saying, don't trust your eyes. And this journey is Soul kind of having to relearn that lesson for himself. I think it's going on with Brendock of games with the audience of what do we know, what have we seen with our eyes, what has been told, but what's being withheld, what are we aware of, what are we not aware of. And I really like that this episode, dove into that. The stranger, Chimera, pretends he's not aware of May's presence, but he's very much aware of her. He's manipulating her every second at the beginning of the episode. Right. At the beginning of the episode, on the other side, I think Soul is far too clouded by his own pain. I think he is not seeing that it's May at all until she has her line about awareness. I think when you really want something that can cloud your mind, you see what you want to see. He fooled us all. And then which is kind of another way to say, don't trust your eyes. Right. And he's mad at himself for not sensing, using his eyes and seeing a bumbling shopkeeper and not looking deeper in sensing who Chimera really was. And then he looks at like, you don't seem to love that droid. And Osha loves that droid. You're May. Yeah. So I really loved all these games of awareness building up to the end beat that I really want to get your take on of why Osha decides to put on that helmet. But, she's very aware, like, did you run this same game on my sister? She's got the line about like, yeah, I'm not that easy to manipulate. Obviously he's getting some hits in and she's affected, but I don't think in my opinion, she's not a step toward going, you're right, I will join you. Let's kill the Jedi. So in your opinion, why is she putting on that helmet? What is she after? What does she want?
I'm clouded by something. This is a great question. Let me try to answer it. But I'm clouded because I don't want her to go to the dark side. I'm clouded. And also, can I highlight too, Mog, again, we're Mog squadding over here, I think already. But I love the lesson of take a look around. What do you see? See an explosion, what do you see? They can kill with lightsabers. Soul what do you see? What do you feel in that great line? That's one of my favorite lines of the series so far. Of the something to tip the scales. Now we're talking about balance, and just the presence of one of these people, them being the Sith or Sith adjacent, has tipped the scales of balance in the Force, all leading to what you're talking about. I don't want Osha to go to the dark side, so I'm rooting for it. But this idea of it's just you and the Force. Right, I've already seen this online. Nothing new here. We got Luke and Obi-Wan in A New Hope. Put on this helmet so you don't see. We got a lot of that other place. Close your eyes, Ray. What do you feel? What do you feel? But the danger is exactly what Chimere adds on at the end of that. It's just you and the Force, and what you bring with you, Yoda, to Luke going into the cave. So what is Osha bringing in there is with my fear. I think she maybe wants to push, challenge. I think you're right. She doesn't feel she's getting a different offer than May got. So like I said, I'm clouded. I'm clouded because I want her just to be like, I went in there. I took some breaths like Vader. I heard Kylo's music playing. She won't know what that means, but she heard it. All these Sith dark side coded things, and like Galadriel turning away the ring. I will diminish and go into the West. I passed this challenge. I'm a Jedi. Like my actions have dictated. That's where I go. That's where I want her to go. But I have to admit, again, I don't think, just in terms of predictions, I don't think she's going to put that mask on and be like, oh, yeah, this is great. You can't even see. You're just you and the Force and my desires. Give me a cape. Let's go. I don't think it's that. But I think it's a bit of a challenge. A good challenge. Maybe a challenge. Yeah.
I don't think she's gonna fall to the dark side or anywhere close to it. She gets angry in this episode, but it's and finally breaks and takes the blade. But what she says is that she is blaming herself. That we've heard before that it seems like if we are going to take the evidence of our eyes, at least of what we've seen, and our ears, whatever else the Jedi did on Brendok, whether or not it was right of them to intervene in Osha and May's childhood. Put that aside. Everything that Osha has said was, even before the Jedi got here, I wanted to go out and explore. I wanted to see more, and I wanted to know. And when the Jedi came, I said, that's what I want. And I continued to want that. And then I couldn't let go of the pain of the past, the pain of the loss of my family. And I failed the Jedi because Soul tried to teach me that, and I could never master it. So I had to walk away. I think she's entirely mad at herself. And I think she's afraid that I'm still angry about the loss of my family. I'm still angry at my sister. I think she's got a line early on of like, I really miss her and I want her to be alive, but I'm angry at her. This very real familial thing. But I think she's sitting and stewing with all of this fear of what will I do? And we learn in this episode that she thinks that, I haven't been able to tap into the Force because you gotta train. It's like push-ups, and my arms are noodles now. And like, no, this is entirely repression because she is strong in the Force. Maybe even there's something more to her power of origin as a witch, that she's got even more crazy, amazing power. And all of this is about a fear of facing herself. So when she puts the mask on, I think it's coded as, oh no, she did what the Sith wants her to. She put on the Sith mask. She's breathing like Vader. We're hearing Kylo's theme. Oh no. But when I look at it, I have it just to like, you go, Osha. Great job. Be a Jedi. You're afraid of yourself. You're afraid of your power. You're afraid to look at your truth and find out if you're a good person or a bad person in your own estimation. Go in there, face yourself, shut everything off but yourself and find out who you are is a great move, a healthy move. We'll see how it turns out. Maybe she'll start the next episode shooting lightning from her fingers. But to me, it's just coded of this whole show has been about, can you face your fear? And her putting on that helmet was, I'm going to try.
Yeah, I love this because it again goes to some of the stuff we were saying of not, don't be afraid to step forward. You could tie it to even some of the stuff in episode 9 of don't be afraid of who you are. And it's very easy to do, especially when we got someone whispering in your ear or that you lost yourself. They took it from you. They took yourself from you. So I'm hopeful too. Yeah, I just in terms of predictions, I currently don't think she's the Acolyte. I think this is about the concept of an acolyte and everyone vying for it in their own way.
Yeah. And then there was a funny line about everybody does seem to want you.
Yeah.
Great. We've talked about this a bit, but I just really wanted to kind of put it out there that how much the characters do talk about loss and the idea of loss, and that I think really makes Jeki's death more powerful because she had that theme statement about death and dealing with it of we are not defined by what we lose, we are defined by what we survive. And I think I wouldn't be surprised to have that be, a line that's echoed at the funeral she's going to get now that they're collecting her body. I would not be surprised if that is, etched in Orabesh on, her Jedi slate there. In that the characters reflect on that's our challenge, facing the fear are going to be defined by what we lose and stay in that anger. Are we going to be defined by what we survive and, learn from it, move on from it? Chimera is entirely lost in defining himself by the trauma of what he lost. We'll talk about the canon of what his story is, but he seems to have lost some kind of Jedi family. He seems to have been rejected and stabbed in the back by some kind of Sith master. He's definitely mad that May, rejected him. He says, "I lost everything, Osha." But when you lose everything, that's when you're finally free. Osha and May's trauma is all about losing their family and losing their culture and losing one another and all that. So I think, can they live up to Jackie's theme statement is also, or Jeki's, not Jackie, Jeki's theme statement is also, I think, one of the big questions of the entire show.
May says, I had to lose a lot of myself to become a Jedi. Speaking about Osha, Soul saying, I'm sorry you feel that way. I know that's not an apology. Some people have already pointed that out. I get it. But I think it ties to a little bit what you're saying, that May feels that Osha, died back then, and really she survived, she thrived, she moved on, and it's still growing, hopefully changing.
Yeah. Final kind of thematic thing for me is, we've talked a little bit about the Vernestra subplot and how it relates to Mog and Moog, about awareness and loss and all those things. I thought it was a big deal that we were introduced to this subplot of the senator. I'm reminding myself of his name. Senator Rayencourt.
Yeah.
Senator Rayencourt. Vernestra's been.
That's a great Star Wars direct name. He's going to take a space ray into court. Blow things up.
It really is.
Yeah.
Senator Laser Trial will be bringing you to. Vernestra's been, kind of a staple of Jedi rigidity, right? She wanted to quietly get this solved as soon as the murders happened, and they thought it might be Osha, right? She's like, handle this quickly. She sent this Jedi team to Khofar kind of under the radar, is not letting it get up to the High Council. And all of that has seemed like, these are the steps leading toward the Jedi's downfall in the prequels. But now we have something concrete that maybe Vernestra has known this entire time, that a senator who's out to make himself famous by pointing out flaws of the Jedi, by doing a deep dive review, a deep dive audit. I see Vernestra in a different light now that she is like, this is an uncomfortable level of intimacy that this senator is going to come in here like a celebrity chef looking for every problem in a kitchen and, try to make fools of us, try to turn people against us for his own benefit. It's not that the Jedi need to be rigid and secretive in general. It's that this specific guy is a threat.
Yeah.
Is really interesting to me, to maybe give Vernestra the benefit of the doubt.
I really like it. Yeah, I really like what you said there. Because I have not read. I've read Phase One, High Republic, and as we've said too many times, fell off because of time, not love. I really love the stories, but my only time with Vernestra is the 16-year-old Wonderkin Jedi Knight, right? And I think there's an understandable kind of, man, she's different now. It's been 100 years. You try getting older, kids. All right, wait till you get beat down by life, bureaucratic choices, jobs, middle management promotions. So I think there's that.
Let me say, thank God I'm not the same as I was when I was 16 years old.
Yes, 100%. So I think there's that at play. But I really like that you're highlighting that there's, you could look at it in a lot of different ways, and you could look at, well, if you got nothing to hide, let the thing go. But it is a senatorial hearing designed to rise someone's stature. It's not about legislation. It's not about solutions. It's nefarious, and I think to see that it was not just a little blip. It was something. I don't think it's going to play into the last 2 episodes, but in the time period, I mean, it might. You know what I mean? Like it's not. We're not gonna get a congressional hearing episode. But yeah, I think it made her protectiveness have another layer to it that I don't think even I was factoring in until this week.
Yeah, no. Again, playing games of like, what is the show telling us when, and how are we reacting when we only have half knowledge?
Right.
Maybe Vanessa will still make some bad decisions, but I also just liked that it is not. Yeah, it's not a totally good faith senators coming in, or a team of senators with different perspectives are going to come in. It's that this senator is going to see something and he's going to spin it. He is coming in at the Jedi Temple to chimere all over the place to go, oh, what they did is really bad. So it might even be like Vernester's like, I think every single choice the Jedi have made is defensible. I think we're doing the right thing. But this guy's going to spin everything into a half-truth that makes us look bad for his own motivation. Is a different perspective.
Different perspective. Like I said, there still could be bad choices to make. This could cause you to kind of rally around, each other, the Jedi to rally around each other in a destructive way. I know. I'm curious to see, because obviously we know where things kind of slide. But I really like how it played out. I really like your point. I hadn't thought of it in that directive of way of just like another side. This entire series, even the big thing, we'll talk about Canon and Lore predictions, but like even the thought of her causing that injury, those scars to Chimere, very realistic possibility. But again, that is one side, not even one side, but just one potential angle to it. We haven't seen the rest.
Yeah. Any other big picture theme thoughts? Any other Chimere's questions, podcast moments you want to share?
I'm looking at his lies. You're right. Don't trust me, nor should you. But you should learn to trust yourself. That's one of the big ones that I liked. You got to the helmet. That was fascinating to me. And the pain. He's got a lot of pain. So yeah, it's all there. The one-sided relationships thing really stood out. We addressed it, but just him feeling the pain, and just letting that make every decision for him going forward.
Yeah, he is deciding based on his pain. And on that great quote, that uplifting quote, we'll take a quick break and be back in a moment. And we are back to continue our discussion of Season 1, Episode 6, Teach/Corrupt. It is, I think, an exciting week, Ken, to talk about canon, lore, responsible speculation. We'll see how responsible it is. I have not spent much time on the old internet, so I don't know what theories are already rising to prominence in the Star Wars community. But let's start with the planet. That was one of my favorite parts of this episode. I love that it just said unknown planet.
Yeah.
Because on one hand, it was like, hey, speculate about this, but after the episode. Don't be distracted by it now. Just watch what's happening on the planet. Don't worry about it right now. Yeah. So how did you take the Chiron of unknown planet? Did you take that as don't worry about it? Did you take it as it will be revealed later? Is it being set up to be a mystery? Is it a way to say it's an unknown planet to the galaxy right now?
Yeah.
But you, the audience, would know it is Octo or Cortosis mining planet or whatever.
Yeah.
But it is unknown to the galaxy right now. How did you receive it?
I received it more as unknown to Osha in this moment, but definitely the story. I liked it. It had vibes of a lot of like Rogue One, right? We had this planet, that mine colony. No name. It's Mustafar. You kind of know it, I thought that vibe kind of was there, but for me, it was fun because I think it's fair to wonder what planet it is. I think it's fair to have some answers based on what you see or what you've read. But I've really felt it pulled me into where Osha was at that moment.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's the only internet theory I've really seen besides people talking a lot about Darth Tenebris about that it aligns with the planet from, I believe, Legends that has Cortosis mines. There is that shot toward the end where right before Osha puts the helmet on, she looks up at the material in the cave wall, which I took to be like thinking about the nature of Cortosis. But yeah, I'm excited about it just as a fun mystery. And is it a fun mystery, or is it something that's going to tie into the story in a meaningful way in terms of the stranger's past, the stranger's true identity? So are you good with talking about the stranger's true identity?
Yeah, absolutely. Let's go to the shores of Baldemnik is what I'm putting my money down on.
Is that the Cortosis mining planet?
That's the site of Tenebrus's death, if y'all remember. And I know you all do. I didn't remember. I didn't remember until today.
Certainly looks like Octo, and I didn't even think about that as those are, those little elephant birds are a distant relative of the Thalasiren. I didn't even think about, but like,
yeah.
Right,
if I'm being honest, there's still enough evidence to maybe say it's Octo. I don't think so, but there's still
I have a wild Octo theory, but it ties into the stranger. So we got first, he is a Darksider, be it Sith, Knight of Ren, whatever, rejected Sith. He's a Darksider, so he could be lying always. But he implies pretty strongly that he was stabbed in the back by his Sith master, cut in the back, and rejected. It was almost the Attack the Clones Padme Anakin meme when Osha asked him, like, you were rejected by your Jedi Master, right? By your Jedi Master. And the way he just doesn't answer is totally well, I'm telling the audience, I mean, Sith Master is, I think, the way I received it, and I suspect I'm not alone. So he implies, in our opinion, he's rejected by a Sith Master. But then he's got the weird lines about, like, yeah, I was a Jedi. And you're like, never heard of you. It was a long time ago. It was a really long time ago. So here's my really wild theory. I don't know really what it would mean to the story. But if he's on Octo, Octo is supposed to be, the original planet of the Jedi. Long lost, long abandoned, I think, even at this time. So, like, what I'm wondering is, could he be some truly ancient Jedi that was, not frozen in ice, but, frozen in proto-carbonite, fell through a wormhole in the world between worlds, whatever. Star Wars is a wild space fantasy, and, maybe he did just go into, like, some sort of, stasis chamber for thousands and thousands and millions, whatever it is, years. And that's why he knows where Octo is.
This is great. This is almost, I mean this in a good way, like a good video game plot. Like we're uncovering where he came from. Yeah.
This is wild. I don't think it's going to come true, but I really liked it. It was really fun. It's like, how could they? Because I felt like that line was very odd. It was
long time ago?
Really long. Yeah, it was a long time ago. It's like, fine. I got kicked out when I was 6 and you didn't know me, kind of thing. It was like, okay, fine. Maybe that's what it'll turn out to be.
Yeah.
But the second line of "it was a really long time ago" felt like oddly delivered and oddly underlined.
No, I definitely agree with you. The line stands out because even, she, 16 years ago, left 12 years later, roughly, because she left 6 years ago at the start of the series. I didn't write all that math down. I apologize.
Yeah, she was a Jedi for like 10 years,
Yeah.
So,
it's functional, right? She not Google Gaga her way around the hallways as a 2-year-old youngling. She knows. She's got it. So she would know. So it's prior to that. And if he's just doing what you and I might do of like, wow, 2010's a long time ago. Long time ago. It might be that, but
yeah.
I don't believe anyone's age in Star Wars right now. You know what I mean? Like, and that's not a Caddy Monday reference. That's more of even a Vanessa Rowe for 116. Looks wonderful. She's doing great. Like, what's your skin routine? Like, I don't think Kymir's 30.
Yeah. Maybe he is. I mean, wouldn't that be an amazing twist if this is some outward projection and, he's been drinking some,
Oh, you're
powerful water on Octo, and he goes too long without is that a rejuvenative bath he's taking, not just a nude manipulative bath?
that's interesting.
You
That's
have to
interesting.
bless himself, not in the waters of Lake Minnetonka like Prince, but in the waters of Octo. And if he doesn't,
Yeah.
he's going to turn into Sith.
Yeah, I like that. Is he wearing a Melisandre a necklace as he takes off because a 400-year-old crone? Like, yeah, maybe he's got that little pool in his cave. Like, maybe that one's got the
Yeah, maybe he has like
rejuvenation.
a magic amulet cod piece that we didn't see.
I didn't. Could be. A lot of people even talk about the power of two versus just saying the rule of two, but the power of two, and I think it's interchangeable for him. But like connecting a little bit to some of the dyad like conversation Palpatine has, I can get that. I can follow up behind that.
Yeah, I don't know what the sort of. I guess to me, the value of that would be if this show ends up being partially about like what is the core Jedi and Sith philosophy. If he was involved with both the Jedi and Sith at an entirely different time, and he was rejected by his master during the Sith Wars, would he have a truly different perspective on the state of the galaxy? Because it's like so much has changed and nothing's changed, in his resentment towards kind of both organizations being even more deep seated.
That's fascinating. I loved his line to Osha earlier of like, no, that wasn't Saul's power. That was your power, and he didn't let you have it, right? So if at any point he was like, as he said last time out when we had more conversations with the previous episodes of, I want to be free to do what? I don't need to answer that question. I just want to be free to be me, man. That was what was at play too with either the Jedi or the Sith. I'm not defending the Sith Master if it was the Sith Master that did it. And I kind of think it is the Sith Master that caused those scars. But yeah, just like to do what, man? That's the big question for you, Chimere. To do what?
Yeah, maybe he did it. Maybe he did it to himself. It's a manipulation. I don't trust anything he says. So the he's an ancient Jedi with a
I like that
cod piece amulet who knows about Octo because he's from super oldie times. I wanted to share it because it was fun, and it was one of those moments where you're just like, this is fun Star Wars nerding out.
Oh yeah.
I would not bet on myself on this one, and I think what is more probably even more interesting than his Jedi relationship is how exactly he's going to fit into the Sith rule of two, and if he is, a rejected student. How are you feeling about what his Sith relationship is at this point?
I look. I can't lie. Last week I was more the Kylo Ren theme music, which was very present, and then was confirmed. The mask and the look and the feel. Like there was a lot of great work out there that made me think, maybe not Sith, but maybe not a Ren, which is again I still keep saying Sith adjacent. But then some of the stuff I didn't read all the interviews this week, but and just going back to the very beginning of with Leslie Headland, even now some of the stuff this week with Manny Jacinto, now that he's been unmasked and he can talk about it as an actor, the word Sith is thrown around pretty directly. So I'm putting him on that chain, and to me, is he someone who's outside of it? Is the big question. I like the idea of there still being a master present. I still think again, clouded. I want that more than think it. And I don't necessarily need it to be anyone we know, but this planet, Baldemnik, if it's possible that it's more than possible that it is this planet, but if it's that, and is it a fun connection for those that know, or is it very purposeful? That's clouding my judgment on the predictions. But his Sith relationship, I think he's in the system and he wants to move up the ladder, and he needs an acolyte to do that.
Yeah, I continue with feeling like he was a Sith, but he got kicked out. He was rejected.
That's fascinating too.
So he believes all the teachings, but he's got that like Maul, what I wasn't good enough perspective,
Yes.
and he's so lonely and so manipulative. Maybe he got to the point where he wanted actual intimacy with his master, and I don't mean that in a sexual way. I mean that in a warmth, love. What Soul is trying to give to Osha and May. Did he break his Sith vow by honestly wanting, to be comforted
To be
by
friends.
to be friends, and not just as a lie. It was true, and the master kicked him out for it because he's real obsessed on that, and he's real obsessed with manipulating on that specific idea of loss and not being able to love enough.
Yes, and then going back to even like what it's not his power, it's your power, which is a flip on some of the stuff Ray has to deal with, I know, but and I mean it in a tantalizing, intriguing way, but just this idea of like I wanted to be something more, and I couldn't allow to, couldn't be me. That's very easy to pin on the Jedi. I think that's absolutely probably some truth in his heart and soul that he's feeling, but the idea of what you're saying of like I just you Master Darth, whatever, you didn't ask about my day. Can we have that relationship? And that person being like, no, you're out, you're stepping out of line here. Who you want to be is not who this is. This is not what it's about. Because you've mentioned a few times it's one of my favorite little Sith moments. It's Palpatine talking to Vader. You seem to be conflicted over your old friend Kenobi. What's going on? Sit in your lava house.
Seem agitated, my friend. Palpatine calls Vader his friend relatively often, and I feel like it's bait. I feel it's like I'm offering the hand of friendship.
Oh yeah.
And if you call me friend back, I'm going to tell you you're not being a good Sith, and I'm going to electrocute you with my danger fingers. It's like offering that little hand of friendship, and like you can't take this, right? Just want to mess with you.
You're making me question. I use buddy and pal a lot, or old friend. Right now, you're making me question my use of it there.
There's some Sith in Los Angeles who deploy buddy and pal in dangerous ways that one should be aware of, right? Of fake intimacy like a Sith.
Because it's so funny because I spent enough time in the pro wrestling world that the term brother, which is a whole call, it's a different. But hey, brother, how you doing? I'm just gonna pull back from that one. Now I'm trying to do, hey, pal. Oh no, now see Joseph. Now you're questioning. I'm questioning. I'm gonna put the helmet on. I gotta see.
It's all about the truth, right? And sensing the truth. I think anybody would hear Palpatine say, "You seem agitated, my friend. Like, seems like a good guy. I think I can trust him." Yeah, I don't think you're getting a good vibe from him. I don't think so. I want to talk quickly about one little thing that I've been wondering the whole time because Osha, even though she's so conflicted about having left the Jedi and she was wrestling with that in this episode, the guilt of it. Saul obviously feels like he failed her. But she's been so coded as a triumphant Jedi, and I had been wondering, where is her lightsaber? Did she like surrender it to Saul, and he's got it in like a little shrine in his room because he's sensitive, or does she have it hidden away somewhere? So I was thrilled that Chimere brought it up to be like, you must have surrendered your weapon. So my kind of lore prediction question for you is, do you think we're going to see Osha's blade? Do you think there'll be a triumphant moment where she's like, actually, I am a Jedi. I've behaved like a Jedi, and I am a Jedi, and...
Yeah, I actually could see that. That's a cowardly way of me placing a bet, huh? I could see it only because going back to that early moment, it's one of my favorite moments that I've already highlighted on the show of Saul showing this lightsaber, right? You want it to mean something. It's a symbol. So I could see that. And whether it's given back to her, she gets a new one, is Ilum, are we finally going to go to Ilum in a show again? No, I could see it because it has great meaning. And in a series that is constantly asking you to look at the actions beyond just a title, and Chimere even has that here too. You keep saying you're a Jedi, you're not a Jedi, but her choices and her decisions and her views seem to be aligned. Not unlike what we've talked about Ahsoka, kind of representing the best of what the Order could be, even when she's not in it. I think it could lead to that kind of decision in a moment.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we'll see. But I feel like at this point, between that great saber moment with Saul, showing her that weapon as a symbol of what it is to be a Jedi, and the stranger particularly pushing on it, I'm very hopeful that we will see her blade.
Yeah.
Speaking of blades, let's talk Vernestra. We got some Vernestra canon. We got the light whip, and then yeah, I've read all of Phase 1. I am not caught up on the beginnings of Phase 3, so I don't know everything that's going on with Vernestra. But it was a big point of Phase 1 of the High Republic publishing initiative that Vernestra had those hyperspace issues where she would have the visions in hyperspace. So not only got the light whip, we got an acknowledgement that she's got a special relationship with hyperspace in a funny moment of, doesn't it make you nauseous, Master?
Yeah. No.
So how did you feel about the sort of Vernestra connections to her story in the publishing side?
I mean, to me, it's evidence of care for it, and again, I actually really understand some of the posts I've been seeing of this isn't my Vern, and I think that's fair, and I don't think Vern's in a like I know her, Vernestra's in a happy spot right now. But the reveal of what you were talking about, the possible extra layer to what's going on, makes more sense to me. So I think it actually adds weight that there's just an acknowledgement of who she was and who she still is, and even the things she struggles with. It's all there in this character. And remember that light whip. I think it was a tiny moment. It was the trailer moment that now she kills the Umbara moth, and I don't know if we'll see the light whip again. But that light whip is huge to her identity. The fact that it's just freewheeling now, when it was something that she was a true part of herself, she was afraid to express and show.
And it looked cool. We saw part of it in the trailer. That was one of my great joys of this episode because. I thought it looked cool. I loved the way she used the Force to pull her, hilt to her hand, and I loved the talk.
I like that.
I love that her Padawan couldn't even get his hand to his blade before she'd taken care of the problem. I think she's coded as being very, very aware. She knows what's going on politically. She knows what's going on on the planet. She can sense everything that's happened. She's, tipped into. She's aware of the bigger picture. So I love that it showed us how aware she is that, like, there's a problem behind me. Everything about the light whip was really cool. Yeah. But the joy of it for me was getting to see my wife see it, because she hasn't read these books. I didn't tell her there was a light whip. She hasn't seen that trailer.
Yeah.
And she did like a double take to me on the couch. It happened, and she looked over and then looked back at me and was like, did I just see that? I was like, what was up with that lightsaber? And it was like, let's talk after the episode. So we had a fun conversation about its origins in the book, but it was really wonderful to see it from somebody's eyes, where it wasn't a big canon discussion. It wasn't, is Vernestra going to have her light whip? How is it going to look on screen? It was just from my wife's perspective. The hell was that? Awesome.
Yeah. This is part of it. Yeah,
it's great.
Yeah, and the Vernestra of it all too. I don't think we're done discussing. There's something you just said that I really like. She's very aware. That's on display in this episode. Again, you could have the locals say Umbara moths hatched a nest. That's probably why they're dead. You could stop there. This entire episode's about, you could stop there. Just take it on the surface. You're digging deep. But I like what you said about she's hyper aware of a lot of this stuff. And I'm not just making light jokes. I know you're not either. But as you grow and change and more responsibility, that's why Summers as a kid were great. You and I weren't worried about the Cold War too much in the summer of '84. We just were playing Legos and living large. And all this stuff's on you. And I think now, as I spend a little bit more time with Vernestra, she was at times cold and indifferent. I didn't fully trust the whole, we got to keep it secret. I had questions about that. And I still think it's part of the bigger picture. But I like that you said she's aware, she's planned as that, and that's a strength. And it also means she's dealing with a lot of things that we should give her credit for.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's one of the really interesting canon and lore sort of wrinkles of this episode was, everybody has been so concerned about, well, what do the Jedi know about the Sith? In Ki-Adi-Mundi's line, where he is certain in the Phantom Menace that they've been extinct, Yoda seems to be aware of the rule of two, and Mace doesn't seem to disagree with him. So we have those, two perspectives in the Phantom Menace. I think we on ForceCenter have been saying, this isn't one of those little canon wrinkles of like, we're going to zig and zag around this. I feel like it's a point. I feel like it's a part of the point of the show of Ki-Adi-Mundi seems to believe that with his whole often incorrect heart in the Phantom Menace, and Yoda knows what he knows. He's like, now that Ki-Adi's not listening, we know that they got this rule of two thing. So how did those two perspectives come to be 100 years later? I feel like is part of what the story that the show is telling. Last week, Chimere slaughtered everyone but Sol, Osha, and May, who could have reported the Sith are back. Now, now there are even more people who know. So it becomes that the answer to why do the Jedi not just fully know that the Sith are back isn't because everybody's going to die. Well, maybe all these characters are going to die. I don't know. It just made me feel like that question is going to be much more tied up in this damn senator. There's the implication that obviously Vernestra doesn't believe Sol did it, but that's exactly where the Sith are so unbelievable to this Padawan kid, to Moog, that he's like, maybe Sol did it.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
Will all of these Jedi die? Will Sol be framed? Will Vernestra cover it up because of the Senate investigation? Here's my wild theory. I'm on a wild theory kick this episode.
I love it. We don't go this direction too much. This is wonderful.
I think we might actually have a short Senate investigation type scene. We only got 2 episodes left, and at least in one of them is a flashback. So I'm saying short. Vernestra isn't open to the idea of a Sith. She's not saying keep an open mind. She's saying she sensed before there's something much larger at work, something to tip the scales. She says it again, something to tip the scales, like confirmed. I'm right. There's a big problem. A lot of Jedi can't accept this, but I think the Sith are back. That's the way I took that. The way she says something to tip the scales.
I did.
So
too.
here's my wild theory.
Okay.
What if Vernestra makes the pitch to the Senate, like, get off our back, give us room. The Jedi are needed because the Sith have returned. What if she says the Sith have returned with her full chest in the Senate chambers, and then through various plot developments, everybody else who knows about it dies, Chimere dies, the evidence goes away, the Jedi with lightsaber burns, bodies have been burned, whatever, for whatever reason, it's scuttled. And Vernestra's got nothing to back up. That she said in front of the whole Senate, don't mess with the Jedi. We are the last line between you and galactic domination from the returned Sith. And it turns out there's nothing to support it. And it becomes this piece of mockery that the Jedi cried Sith. And Vernestra, falls out of favor because she's the Jedi who cried Sith. I could see that really leading to Ki-Adi-Mundi being like, remember that embarrassment 100 years ago? When Vernestra claimed the Sith had returned?
Yeah. Here's what I really like about this. It'd be a great scene too, by the way. You want it in the pods, right? She's maybe in the Senate chamber pods floating.
Yeah, but maybe they're a different color, just
different color.
Switch things up. At least the Senate cameras should be blue instead of yellow. At least that.
Totally agree with you, but this is just fun talking inside the Star Wars world. I love this idea. It is the part of our big purpose as a Jedi Order would be to watch out for this kind of thing. Yes, we're in the galaxy to help people, and the Nile will rise up and deal with that. We don't know the exact ending of that too, by the way. But this idea of like, hey. We're also here for the Sith. They're gone, but that's kind of why we stand watch in some ways. Am I thinking of the wall in Game of Thrones? Yes, absolutely. But what happened there? It was eroded because people believed after a while we don't really need it. It's no longer honor. Send your thieves. Just put some people up there to guard from these people that we have judged, these wildlings. And if what you're saying is this, it now erodes the thought of the need of the Jedi Order, perhaps even for the Jedi, for the young ones coming up. We're here to help the galaxy, but the big purpose, there's no real Sith. In fact, someone lied about it. I could see that. I could see that being a little bit of a factor. It'd be fun.
Yeah.
It'd be different.
Yeah, this theory is pretty wild and a lot of storytelling to pack in what's left. So this is also, for me, like, that was fun to say. Probably not going to happen. I wouldn't bet on myself. But I think a big question is, I don't think it's going to be swept under the rug. I think this incident is going to live on in the memory of the Jedi in some way. It's either going to be that everybody who saw him is dead. It's going to be that somebody else is framed for it. It's going to be that Vernestra reports it to the High Council, and somebody on the High Council buries it. It's going to be I think, a concrete, specific answer that tells us about where the Jedi are going, about why this is not fully documented as a horrific Sith encounter.
Because this is part of what the series set out to do, right?
Mm-hmm.
Mystery, murderous, all stuff, but also to analyze how did the Jedi get to the point of falling at the beginning of the prequel era.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm so excited to see it. Last little canon thing is just that great mention of the expansion region, which is a part of the galaxy. That the senator is from the expansion region, and a lot of great planets in modern canon are in the expansion region. Mimban, Umbara, Pisana, Ring of Khafreen, Sabinsko, which is from the Bloodline novel. All sorts of great stuff. Right. Fun to see an Abednedo senator and a Selkath, the sort of mantis ray head alien. Right. Appeared earlier in Acolyte 2, but another prominent live action depiction of an alien that so far had been animated only. So that was very cool.
That's right.
All right. Any other canon thoughts from you, or shall we move on?
No, the final big one. Can I just look, because I know it's part of the conversation this week. This planet Baldemic. I just want to read what is on here, and I know everyone else is doing it. I'm not going to read all of it here. Again, this is Plagueis killed his master. There are Tenebris on it. You can go into Legends and all that kind of stuff. We know that's Legends, but stuff gets pulled into canon all the time. But it was interesting. Baldemic was an ocean planet adorned with rocky, tropical islands in the Bakrofsen system. I think it's tropical enough, but when I think of tropical, I don't think what it looked like there. Though there's parts of Hawaii that are a little bit of that too. It's not all palm trees, right? So I wouldn't be clear. But anyways, I thought it was an interesting little detail. I think this is an interesting choice. It makes a lot of sense. So does Octo. So does just another planet that we haven't known that's similar. Maybe it's another planet near Kif Beer. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I think Leslie Headland's been very clear about wanting to pull from the expanded universe from Legends. She's clearly a fan of it. If it's a planet in canon where there's cortosis mining, I do think there's a very good chance that the master that rejected Chimere is Darth Tenebris, and I wait with everyone with excitement to see a scary Sith Bith, and if they can make Tenebris look scary, that menacing old Sith Bith that you will have to say carefully. Yes. That would be great. I would not be at all surprised if it was that planet. And if it was that planet and it ties to cortosis, I would just be like, cool, that's a great, fun detail and a celebration for people who have a relationship with that planet. Great, love it. If it's Octo, and those are, the cousins of Thalassiren and all that, if it's Octo, I want it to have a little bit more oomph.
Yes.
I want there to be a reason that he knows that planet, that, it appears that May met him there, that May's able to bounce back and forth on that planet, that May's wandering around the galaxy knowing where Octo is. And I'm not up in my canon arms about, but nobody can know. Right. But I just wanted to have some weight and gravitas. The other option, Legends Planet is that's a cool Easter egg for those who could care. Octo has some storytelling weight to it to me.
Yeah. I actually really agree with you on that one too. If it is, I don't want it just to be, isn't that fun? I want there to be a bit of a why, and that's why I would not at the end put my chips down on Octo. Yeah.
Yep. All right. We always like to talk a few favorite moments: comedy, action, weirdness, great shot, great line delivery, wherever you want to go. What occurred to you, Ken, is some great moments in this episode?
I really only have one. Basil dancing like me at a wedding when he challenges Osha. I don't know what that was, but I loved it. Just that, is he communicating? Does he say, I'm going to fight you? Or I saw you fight? I don't know what it was, but I really enjoyed it. That's a great moment. But beyond that, a lot of my favorite moments were the absolute emotional nudity, as you said, but the open, honest emotions of Saul just really got me some of the best stuff in the series thus far. I really like that. In an episode that did not have the lightsaber swinging action that we saw last week outside of a light whip, which was another cool moment, I really liked that stuff. It was big emotions on display.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think those are a couple of moments I wrote down. In particular, when Saul first goes to try to fix the transceiver and just has
It's
that
great.
breakdown in a very un-Jedi-like way, has to just pound the table
Mm-hmm.
in grief and pain, and anger at himself, and then seeing him like just. I love that he just kind of looks around like in that way that you sometimes do, of like, just is there anything even in this room that would help me,
Yeah,
you
yeah.
know? And then just kind of not fully getting calm, but just like kind of breathing to try to process this just torrent of pain. It's so well done.
Mm-hmm.
I also love his jump to light speed. That
Mm,
he's being
mm.
told to follow protocol and wait for the rescue team. Jumps out of size and jumps out of there right as Vernester's ship comes in. And I think I really like it because he's just like, no, I got to follow my own Jedi path and I got to do what's right. I can't wait another second until
Mm,
I share my truth and
mm-hmm.
tell this poor girl what she needs to hear. So I love that.
That's
I did
good.
love the weird little elephant birds. That
Oh
was
yeah,
really great. Basil,
yeah,
I loved all his little grunts and groans and sniffs.
yeah,
Is
yeah,
just a great a little walking ASMR channel all by himself. Basil, his
yeah.
little shocked face when he saw
Yeah.
things. Um, this is a weird thing to end on, but I love seeing the corpses. um,
Ah.
and there was a really kind of one of the most dynamic cuts in an episode that had a lot of kind of slow, steady camera movement and
Mm.
nothing too fast or zippy, in just the way it was edited and filmed. The cut to Jackie was really upsetting,
Yeah, no
and the
warning.
shot
Yeah,
of
you're that.
Yord, all the color already,
Yeah.
seeming to go ashy, and
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
lifeless
Mm-hmm.
already.
Yep. Yep.
On the same day, I believe they announced his Funko Pop bobblehead to see Broken Neck Yord. Extremely upsetting. Um, but it was a good upset to be like,
Yeah.
this loss matters and this is shocking and painful and it
Mm-hmm.
matters.
And confirmed them as real. There was about two. By the way, I want to point. There's 2 seconds at the beginning of this episode. I went, "Oh, it was all a dream." When Osha wakes up, I was like, "It was all a dream." No, no. Yeah, no. It was a harsh cut. It was right in your faces, right in your heart, seeing them, and starting with Jackie. So yeah, I like what you're saying. It added some realism, some pain, and then you got the 80-yard line of we got to give him a proper burial. Of just like, yeah, all right, they're going to take care of it.
Yeah, that might be the end of the show. Is that
Mm-hmm.
that burial bringing things kind of full
I could be
circle?
fine with that. Yeah, fine with that.
Was there anything else in this episode that you disliked or questioned or wrestled with that we haven't talked about?
Again, talk to the top. I think it's a bigger conversation. I keep going to it each week. I'm joking off air, even with you and Jen, of just like, I'm tired of hearing myself saying some stuff. I just there's some editing choices I kind of worry about. Little directing choices all through the series. There's a house style that seems to be emerging that I rub up against a little bit. But I really, in honest, when I say like, God, I was watching this the first time and literally out loud on a treadmill went, oh, ooh, that's good. Because this series is really putting forth some great questions, just asking questions, great thoughts, and digging into what we know or think we know about these two sides and playing with it. And I come back for that more than worry about a cut here and there that I just don't like.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I agree with you, and I think I will say this isn't the show; it is the marketing of the show. Uh, it was really fun to discuss Vernester's light whip. It was really fun to have it confirmed, but I didn't need it in the trailers. And I think I enjoyed the
Yeah.
light whip moment, but also like the first episode, they went to Khofar knowing like, oh, Vernester's not with them. So eventually Vernester's going to go to Khofar because that's clearly where she is in that trailer moment where her light whip goes off. The fact that
Yeah.
we only have 2 episodes left and there's still a monumental event that's in
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
trailer that I know is coming. I think
Yeah.
this show was solid enough, fascinating enough that I almost feel like some of what they decided to put in the later trailers was sweaty. Was like
Yeah.
we really want this to sell. Throw in the light whip, and I think for All In fans, they did not need to do that in the marketing.
Yeah.
I have a criticism of the marketing.
Yep. I agree.
my only other little thing, and this isn't is about this episode, but it's also just about a totally subjective taste thing. I feel like I would like a new idea, a new paradigm in music that accompanies light, playful scenes. The music in this show is phenomenal across the board. The actual music is very, very good music that I liked. But, every time we see Basil, I don't need light, playful flutes to tell me this scene's fun. There's some moments like that in Ahsoka too. And I know there's moments in the original trilogy, and it's not a bad thing. It's just one of those, for me, it's like, how, for a while there, every trailer began with "in a world," and now every trailer has the angry honk of "wah," right, and every trailer has, oh, what if it's a pop song, but it's distorted and slow. All things that are when they started, they're great, but you overuse them. And for me, hey, I'll tell the audience what they can tell that it's a light, playful scene. Let's tell them with the flute. I'm a little tired of myself.
Yeah, I actually can agree with you there. I'll stop there.
I feel bad saying that because I think everything else about the music is phenomenal. There are interviews with the composer that pop up on Instagram, and it's so thoughtful and it's so great. And I love the music and I love the execution of this. It's more just larger in culture and storytelling of let's find a different way to score comedy scenes so they're not so similar.
Yeah, I got you. I'm with you.
All right. Is there anything that we haven't talked about that you wanted to touch on?
Excited for next week. Excited for, the safe assumption that maybe we're finally going to get a flashback here. Great Scott Marty, we got to go do something about your kids. I can see that coming. We'll see how it plays out. I am really excited to get the rest of the story, the rest of the information. They've done a good job of making me wait. And I will say, maybe this was a criticism, I should have put it there, but I think I have, you mentioned it, reached my limit of, well, I'm going to tell you. Oops. Now you need to tell us.
Sorry, got interrupted. Yeah. And I'm with you. Big picture, I'm really, really loving the show. I think the action has been phenomenal. I think the acting is great. I think there's some standout like Lee Jung-jae in Manny Jacinto and his arms. And I love all the ideas. I love the amount of classic Jedi and Sith philosophy mixed with new ways to look at it, new ways to present it. And most of my challenge is this sort of limit. Is it a limited series? Is it an expanded movie? Is it a television show? Have an effect to me on the pacing. And I'm eager to get the rest of the story, which for me was the last thing that I wanted to touch on. I loved Soul's line, maybe one of my favorites in the episode, but it also made me laugh when Soul was saying to May at the end, we have a lot to do. We're going to find your master. We're going to save Osha. But first, you and I are going to talk. And it really was you got 2 episodes. Not only in story do we have a lot to do, but in our human world of 2 weeks from now, you got a lot to do, man. Get on it.
Yep.
Very funny. If you could have a figure or merch of any character from this episode, who or what do you want?
You telling me we're not going to get a naked chimera in a bath? You telling me we're not going to get that?
With Codpiece Amulet.
It's not right. Give me that. Give me that.
Yeah.
Bath time stranger.
Yeah. I think Vernestra Light Whip is coming along for sure. Along with Vernestra with Light Whip is definitely coming with Bath Time Stranger.
So you want a figure, Light Whip figure, Vernestra? Absolutely. I immediately went to Galaxy's Edge and cut to Jennifer Landa saying, yeah, I took my daughters and we got a Light Whip and now I don't have an eye. And the Light Whip
I think that there have been meetings happening in Hasbro where the younger people are we got to make a Light Whip, and anybody who is a parent has a younger sibling, an aunt or an uncle, are just no, for the love of all that is holy and decent. No Light Whips at Disney. But anyway, I know they put out the sensory deprivation helmet. I did really like the shot of Osha looking the external shot of her with the helmet on was both creepy and also like finally a break. So maybe I will buy that. Maybe I'll buy that.
One time I put on my friend's noise canceling headphones about 5 years ago, and it was a new concept, and that works. So maybe the helmet is a thing we all need sometimes.
Yes, the Face Your Fear helmet. Put the sensory deprivation helmet on your head. There, almost 2 hours later, I said it correctly. That's going to wrap up our show. Ken, you want to let people know where they can find us?
We are Force Center. We are on social media at Force Center Pod. Facebook page is Force Center Podcast. Instagram, YouTube as well. Check out clips there from our good pal Big Lou at Big Lou's Clubhouse. He's been helping us out with getting some clips out. Subscribe on YouTube if you please. And if you want, you can get merch at tpublic.com/user/Force Center. And you can support us directly at patreon.com/Force Center. You can get us as a podcast anywhere there's podcasts. Just search, you'll find us. Follow me at Ken Napzok. I will be in Seattle this weekend with Mark Ellis, July 5th and 6th at the Comedy/Bar in the Capitol Hill area of Seattle. Check us out. Other dates announced, including Joseph Scrimshaw's wonderful birthday variety show that he's going to tell you about right now on August 16th. I know your show date.
Good.
I'll be there.
If you're like, it's September 17th, I'd be like, uh-oh. Anyway, yes, it is Friday, August 16th, and we both know that. The birthday show is called Horror Years Old. I am having a big birthday this year, so I'm celebrating it and dealing with it by having some fun. If you're in the Los Angeles area, you can get tickets right now to come join us on Friday, August 16th at the Lyric Hyperion. Or if you're absolutely anywhere else in the world, you can live stream it, and those tickets are up right now as well. You can get to the ticket link on my website, josephscrimshaw.com. You can also follow me on all the different social media at Joseph Scrimshaw and follow my various adventures. And my blog, Finish Your Monsters, where I'm discussing some of my creative adventures and some life adventures. It's a difficult time, I think, for most of us, and it is much like the lessons of the Acolyte, I think. We got to face that and find a way to move forward at the same time. So I am always trying to share ideas of how to do that and looking to everyone else to share ideas of how to do that as well. All right, that is it. This has been the Acolyte Report.